Hey everybody, the Bedbug Guy is here for yet another video, and today I wanted to talk specifically about Dr. Hawass and defend him a little bit because he does catch a lot of heat, and I want to go into kind of why that is and what's going on across the world of history. And if you've never been to my channel or see me, welcome. If you'd like to join my secret society, it's very secret, don't tell anybody. Hit the subscribe button. And real quick, what I'm about is just a guy who's been studying Egyptology since he was like 4. And I consume both mainstream and alternative. And on my channel, I go both ways. I don't think that mainstream is always right, and I don't think alternative history is always wrong. I will call out both, and I will defend both. I think that's what needs to be done. Like I always say, if everybody could drop their egos for a minute, we might solve a mystery. But, you know, let's use Dr. Zahi Hawass as an example, especially with the recent interviews. And I've covered this before, way back in the past when I was learning how to do this, and nobody watches your past videos because you think this sucks. You should see the older stuff. Fancy editing and production value, you will not find that here. We're just here to talk. And I love engagement. You can either ask questions, drop your hate, or make comments in the comments below. I love engagement. Everybody is welcome. Now, as far as Zahi, most recently I did a video about his interview on Piers Morgan with Jimmy from Bright Insight and Dan from History Debunking. And previous to that, the interview he did on Joe Rogan. The Joe Rogan interview did not go real well. I mentioned before, everybody seems to have an issue with him, and he catches a lot of heat. For me, the only real issue I have with him is he's just really frustrating. He doesn't interview well in a lot of situations. He is difficult to speak to. And from what I understand, that is just the way he is. Okay, people are just hard to talk to. And let's examine why he's up. He tends to be frustrating because he can answer a lot of questions, but he doesn't always answer people that are asking him. So we'll get into that here. Who is Dr. Zahi Hawass? Well, first and foremost, he's an Egyptologist. He's also a PhD in Egyptology. He's been doing it pretty much his whole life. He spent 57 years at Giza and Saqqara. Not only that, he is an Egyptian, so there's a lot of national pride there. He's considered, or if not, the authority, especially on Giza and Saqqara. But in all of Egypt, he's considered the authority by the Egyptians and, of course, Egyptologists. And as he likes to say, he's seen every grain of sand on the Giza Plateau. That's probably not far off of as an exaggeration. I don't think he's touched them all because usually the excavation workers do all the digging. But I'm pretty sure between him and Dr. Lehner, they've been through all of it as much as possible. And you could say that. And not only that, he was director of Giza. He was also the top dog on the Supreme Council of Antiquities for a long time. And he's become kind of like this face of Egyptology and documentaries and tourism, because that's a big chunk of their economy is tourism. So picture this guy. He's considered an authority. He's spent almost 60 years where this is all he's done. He is just Egyptology, excavation, discoveries, publishing. He's been down there with the paintbrush and the dental tools, picking out artifacts, cataloging them, photographing them, translating the hieroglyphs, determining how this dating and publishing. This is his life's work. And the other people he generally talks to on a daily basis are other Egyptologists. So when he speaks to them, it's all Egyptology. I mean, if you're a person who's had a long career doing the same thing, you know what I'm talking about. If you ask me about pest control, the conversation is going to be completely different. I've been doing it for 17 years. So when I talk to another pest control guy, you're not going to understand what you're going on. But when I talk to customers, I have to kind of go into a different mode to explain it in such a way. And sometimes, especially Dr. Hawass, he doesn't really go into that mode. And as he mentioned on Piers Morgan, he kind of assumed that Joe Rogan knew more than he thought, but he didn't. So if you don't know what he's talking about and you ask him a question, he's going to take a long time to answer it. And that can be frustrating. But as I've said before, with Egypt, when you focus on one thing, there is a lot of other data around it that needs to be considered. And I'll point back to say, I did a video talking about the pyramidology that Graham Hancock likes to talk about, and other people, and even Jimmy mentioned it on the Piers Morgan interview. And I did a view, if you consider everything else around it, as that's presented, it really doesn't make sense. But if you just focus on the equations and the measurements, then by golly, it does. So sometimes it's just that way. He's trying to explain something to either Joe or Piers, and Piers, he didn't have a lot of time. And sometimes there's just a whole lot more to the story. So that's just the way it is. And that can be very frustrating to people. But he does catch a lot of heat from the alternative side of history, and he does not consume that, any of those published works. And you can tell, as I said, he didn't know what the term Zep-Tepi means. And he touched on that in the Piers Morgan interview, almost word for word what I said, which is that term does not appear in Egyptian texts in relation to the creation myth. It's not a bad term to use for it, but it just doesn't appear as the ancient Egyptians referred to it. It's just a weird situation. So he's never heard that because he doesn't read that stuff. Because somebody calls it Zep-Tepi, which you can call it Zep-Tepi, but he doesn't know it as that. That's just the way. So that can get frustrating. So when he comes into these interviews, or when people talk about him, and then he automatically just gets totally, he'll start to get aggravated when people mention these, especially when they're questioning his work. And that can come off as kind of as a bad attitude, bizarre. Well, why is that? I want you to everybody put themselves in his shoes. This is literally his life's work. He spent 60 years on Giza. He's made incredible discoveries. He's been down in the trenches, out in that hot sun, digging through, cataloging everything, translating everything, publishing everything. It's literally his life in books. And he's published all this work. And on the other side of the planet, there are some people, not all, I'm not going to name names, but there are some people who are convinced, for whatever reason they can come up with, that Khufu did not build that pyramid. The Egyptians were not even capable of doing it. They must have had either extraterrestrial help, or there was another civilization, whatever idea that they have, which is fine. And there's some people who go to research it, and as academics do, so do alternative historians, they tend to cite each other, their trusted peers. But when they go into the mainstream to look at evidence, so they pick up Dr. Hawass's work, and they look at it, and they go, well, that's a lie. No, it can't be that way. It definitely was aliens that helped them build the pyramid, because nobody had that technology and the Egyptians didn't have that capability. And then they publish, and people love a good mystery, and they cite each other. They're not citing the mainstreams. Or if they do, it's with a "I don't think so" at the end. They publish it. Everybody loves a good mystery. The books sell. They go on speaking tours. They get on these huge platforms. And when people ask them, well, how come the Egyptologists don't? Well, they say, well, it's a conspiracy. The archaeologists are hiding something. They don't want this to come out. And by name, people will say, Dr. Hawass is hiding something, including the story about having a vault under the pyramid accessible only by his bathroom. And they accuse him of conspiracy and hiding things, while universally dismissing his work. And the only thing they can come up with is, well, there's no hard evidence for what I'm saying, so he must be hiding it. And of course, this goes both ways. So now you have this cliquish, like different cliques in high school that don't get along, and they start calling each other names. So of course, when Dr. Hawass, somebody mentions this, it's going to aggravate him. You've literally taken my entire life's work, thrown it over your shoulder, accused me of hiding all your evidence in some sort of conspiracy. Why should I even engage? And of course, then you have this problem on alternative researchers who are out there doing their due diligence and going through this. And when they have a legitimate question for an Egyptologist or even Dr. Hawass, and they bring up this subject, well, automatically he's going to dismiss you. And then all of a sudden, these name-calling conspiracies fly back and forth. Well, in reality, you have to really look at it. Now, like I said, Zahi most likely wrong on a couple things, but he doesn't want to hear it from somebody who is literally, and I'm sorry to say, Jimmy, as much as I love him from Bright Insight, literally accused him of conspiracy on Piers Morgan's show. You know, it's just like, well, why should he even respond to that? He wants to talk about Egyptology. You know, we're talking people on the alternative side who have vast majority have never been in the field to do an excavation, never bothered to learn read hieroglyphs, are working off other people's work and just going, nope, yes, no, yes, no, yes. And nobody's really talking to each other because there's this kind of distrust between them, and rightly so on both sides. They're going to call the Egyptologist name and the archaeologist, accuse them of conspiracy. The Main Street people are going to think they're all crazy. There's nobody talking back and forth. Damage has been done. So I'll use the latest, the SART scan with Dr. Biondi's algorithm and Armando May, and this finding of structures under the pyramids. No matter which way you come down on it, here's the absolute truth. They may have found something. They may not have found something. Here's the problem. Egypt, not even 100 years ago, took control of their nation and their antiquities, and they have systems in place. It's their house, their rules. If you want to do anything in Egypt, absolutely excavate, do scans, whatever, you have to make proposals to the ministry, get authorizations, get your concessions to go be able to do these things. And when you do these things, you have to submit all your findings to the ministry, to the other specialists for peer review before you can even make any conclusions. Okay? Remember, their house, their rules. I don't think they're hiding anything. They do censor things, if I've covered in another video. I did a live that I did test. But it's not what you think. They never hide the evidence. They just may kind of tell archaeologists, well, don't make that conclusion, but they're still allowed to publish. So here's what happens. They do a scan from a satellite of a SART scan. It's a synthetic aperture radar tomography. And if you look up what that is, it's literally to do high resolution, detailed imaging of the surface of the planet. Okay, the surface, it's topographical. It's like the LiDAR on steroids. It's very detailed. And they did this over the pyramids, and they ran the noise through his algorithm and found all these structures. And then instead of notifying the Egyptian government they were doing it, or even notifying the ministry of their potential findings, they completely circumvented that system and released it very publicly on a YouTube channel without releasing their findings for peer review. And that's why Dr. Hawass has his attitude. And on Piers Morgan, when he literally said, I ran this by the Scan Pyramids project team, and they said it doesn't work. And of course, Joe's asking, well, who? He just can't believe that you don't believe he's got top people that are doing this, who have the authorization to do all these scans, these latex scans. These specialists know how a SART scan works. And this is how he should explain it. And according to them, that technology should not be able to do this. Doesn't mean it didn't. Doesn't mean Dr. Biondi's algorithm didn't do it. So we're waiting on him to release all that for the peer review and verification and testing. And as of July 22nd, 2025, he still hasn't done that. But you have to remember, not only did they do that, he says, Dr. Hawass makes his press releases that this doesn't mean anything. It's fake news or whatever he said about it. He's coming from that standpoint of they didn't follow procedures. They didn't do what they were supposed to do. Now nobody's going to be able to investigate this because citing that ever. Okay? Because of the way they went around it. So what's going to happen is in order for that investigation to happen, they're going to have to go through the whole rigmarole again and release the algorithm testing. This is going to take forever, so YouTube's going to speculate forever and ever. I hope there's something, but at this point, I can't really call it BS, nor can I call it true. And neither can he. But he's going to straight out just 100% dismiss it, just because of what they said. And not to mention in that press conference, Dr. Armando May started talking about the possibility of this being structures mentioned in the 42 Emerald Tablets of Thoth. And I hate to burst your bubble. If you go back, I did a video about the 42 Emerald Tablets of Thoth, and these people are literally citing a fictional book that was written by Maurice Doreal in the late 1940s. This story is never mentioned before that time he wrote that book. Ever. The only thing that was ever mentioned is the one emerald tablet of Hermes Trismegistus in an Arab alchemical text. And if you read the translation, none of that's in there. One tablet versus these 42. Well, he's basically citing fiction to explain what might be under the pyramids. That's not going over well with the Egyptian governor either. So that's that in a nutshell. That's why he has that attitude on the SART scan. To him, this is all BS. For the rest of us, we're going, let's see the data. Let's get the independent verification before we go saying, yeah, there's something incredible under there. Not to mention they've done high-resolution penetrating radar scans all around the Giza Plateau and never picked up anything like that. They did pick up a really large L-shaped chamber on the Giza Plateau that's going to be opened up soon. They think that might actually be Khufu's tomb. We'll see. So that's in a nutshell. Everybody's going to continue fighting as long as they keep accusing each other of things. But here in my channel, we're going to examine both. I always tell you, if I'm wrong about something, tell me exactly where I can find it. If there's something mentioned in Egyptian history in text, tell me exactly where I can see that text. On a wall, in a papyrus, on a figurine, it doesn't matter. You know, that's how you say it. You don't say, well, this myth or legend that wasn't even written by the Egyptians mentions this, that, and the other. No, see, in this world, you need the hard evidence. So if you know what temple wall from ancient Egypt mentions the term Zep Tepi in relation to the creation myth, please tell me. And somebody said something about the temple at Edfu, which is Ptolemaic, and I didn't see it and it mentioned anywhere in there as that term. So that's that. Enough of this rant for today. I happen to respect Dr. Hawass, although I'm severely frustrated with him, and I wouldn't dare disagree with him face to face because I fear what would happen. But if you like that, you want to hear me talk about more stuff, please subscribe, give me a like, give me a comment, give me some hate in the comments. It doesn't matter. I love engagement. I love all of you. Everybody is welcome. And like I said, join my exclusive secret society by hitting the subscribe button. Till next time, thanks a lot.